So, one of the main reasons that provoked the migration of the Lost Boys from Sudan to the refugee camps was the fact that their home country was war torn. Um, the Muslims basically were annihilating anyone that didn't believe the way they did, and so the Christian Sudanese were on the losing end of the stick, unfortunately. Um, the the main event that's referenced in this particular video has to do with a law that that was recently passed, basically stating that any Sudanese male could be killed, irregardless of their age. So if they were going to have any chance at life, they were going to have to find somewhere else to live to be able to have that. And the extreme acts of violence resulted in them fleeing and leaving, being separated from their parents and their families. The Dinka culture was kind of interesting to learn about, simply because they are different than my own American culture, I guess you could say. Um, they seem to really prize self sufficiency and self reliancy, um, as well as a belief that every opportunity needs to be taken no matter what, and that you owe it to your community and your family, whether they're blood related or not, to do something to contribute to the betterment of that community. Um, they seem to have no problem with optimism in spite of facing some extreme situations. And it's kind of nice to see that, um, since it's something that you don't always find in American cultures. Um, Music is something that they use to remind themselves of their obligations to family, um, as well as their uplifting their own moods. Dance is another way to do that and to occupy themselves. Also, to take their mind off of some of the extremes of their situations. Um, so, the Lost Boys are very into um, helping one another and the continuity of their society as a whole, as well as making some contribution to their society, both in a new place as well as in the old place, and to do all that they can to help someone else because they've been given these wonderful opportunities. One of their important cultural activities, such as was the White House, which is really important because it helps them to come together as a community, number one. But number two, it also gives them some type of reward system, and something to focus on other than what they lack or what's wrong with their current situation. Um, at that they had what they called a parliament where they, discuss changes that they want to initiate, as well as giving awards to the younger children, um, dancing and singing to take their mind off of it and keep their morale up. Um, One of the things I think that helps them be so positive, in light of their situation, is the fact that they do take so much pride in being with each other and spending time with each other, that's spent doing quality activities, which is something that you don't always find in American culture. Once the Lost Boys actually made it to the United States, they had a lot of concerns and questions about being in the United States. One of the boys said that, he heard from people that when you come to the United States, that you could just be killed on the street. And so that was a fear for him because he had been there, 7 days, and that could happen at any time. And while, that is a possibility, things like that do happen, because he had no context for what life in the United States is like. It made it a bigger fear for him than probably it really should have been. Another difference that they faced, or a question that they had, is that the United States celebrates a lot of Christian holidays, and Sudanese are Christian, so they wanted explanations for not so much what something was, but the why behind it. Why do we celebrate Christmas the way that we do? Why do we place, such importance on these other characters that we use to celebrate Christmas? Where do we get those characters from? And unfortunately, there weren't many answers for them, probably because we don't really have an answer for those things. They're just part of our traditions, and just like they continue on with their traditions, we do the same things with whatever our traditions are. And the meaning behind them, or the explanation for them, has long since failed to even matter. Dinka culture is very group oriented, whereas American culture is not so group oriented. It is very much a every man for himself type of sentiment. So it was very hard for them to adjust to that, because they'd spent the past 10 years